I recently reviewed the Huion Kamvas Pro 13, and I was so impressed by it that I had to review their flagship model, the Pro 22. I have that here now, and we'll get to that in just a second.
I ain't getting out of bed today. Keep waking up from the previous night.
Here is the unit, but before we get to the unboxing, let's pay some bills. The active area of this display is 18.7 by 10.5 inches. That's 21.5 inches diagonal. It's a 22-inch display. The resolution is 1080p, 16 by 9 ratio, display type IPS, 100% sRGB, slightly lower than the Kamvas Pro 13. There's a battery-free pen with 10 nibs included. It has 2 side buttons, no eraser. The pen pressure is a whopping 8,192. It has an anti-glare etch screen, 10 express keys on each side, and 1 touch bar, and it is not multi. I've already taken this out of the box, and we can see a nice thank you card from Huion. And I've removed the tape, and the first thing you'll notice is on one side is the actual tower. So I am just going to move this real quick out of the way. Here are the main contents of the box. We have the instructions with a microfiber cloth, a Huion glove. This is AC power adapter, a corresponding plug to the wall, the stand which attaches to the back of the unit. We'll show that once it's attached. 4 screws which go into the VESA screws in the back of the display. A USB cord for data. Video cables included are VGA and HDMI. The donut-shaped pen holder. 1 counterclockwise spin and revealing the nibs and the nib remover inside. And finally the pen. The pen is a sleek design. It's nice. It's very similar to the Pro 13, although this one is, I think, a previous model. But it's a similar pen. It tapers in the back, meaning there's no long barrel, and it allows it to sort of rest in your thumb that way. There's no eraser in the back, but I never find that an issue because I don't use it anyway. And the donut holder is, again, just like the Pro 13, but it's nice. It has 10 nibs inside, and that's where the nib holder is. And it, allows you to put the pen in, basically 2 different ways. You can put it like that, or you can put it just like that. And either way works fine. It's not going to fall out. Here's the unit with the stand attached. We won't spend a lot of time here, but I just want to show the connection. So this is going to be a USB. This is going to be your power. VGA. There is actually a DVI port, even though this box didn't come with a cable, and HDMI. Along the top is going to be power and all your different settings, and we'll go over that in a second. You get a look at the stand attached, and what you're going to do is just pull this up. This is a standard kind of stand we've seen before, very similar to other models, but you see you have quite a number of different configurations. We're going to bring this up on top before we flip the display around and go over it. Okay folks, now that we're all set up, my usual app of choice is to fire up SKETCHBOOK Pro, but before we get into that, let's just go through some of the physical features of the tablet. So across the top here, you're going to have your power button and all your different display settings such. You'll notice there's 10 hotkeys on each side, plus a touch strip bar. Unlike the Pro 13, this touch strip is not, you can't cycle it with a dedicated button, which is good and bad, because on one hand it frees up a button, on the other hand it's limited to one function, which right now I have it on zoom. So I've configured a couple of these buttons. No big deal, we'll run through the driver really quick. If you watch my Pro 13 video, this is going to be somewhat redundant, but for the people who haven't watched that one, I just want to take everybody through it. So starting at the top, this is where you're going to configure all your express keys. And you can see I changed these to spacebar and eraser and brush and Alt and Controlled Alt Z for when I screw up all the time. Digital pen, and like we spoke about, this pen is very similar to the Pro 13 pen, just a little bit different. Same way to configure it, same settings. The work area, one thing to note if you see me switch back and forth and have to go in there to reset, Camtasia doesn't seem to like my dual display setup right now, so every time I fire it up I have to go back into the driver and tell it what screen, but that's only when I'm recording, so that's nothing to do with Huion or the driver or the software. It's something with Camtasia, I don't know. And then finally, here's where we can go and export and import settings, so we can back up our settings when we set our hotkeys, and all that's very nice. As I mentioned, it is a matte screen, so what that means is there's a little bit of tooth, when you're actually drawing on the display. What I did notice immediately out of the box is the color seemed off. They were very blue, but just going into the settings real quick and tuning it to more of a mid-ground between warm and blue seemed to solve the problem. Now, one thing which is the major sell for me is that this is an EMR device, which I've mentioned already. So what that means is that you do have where the cursor might lag behind a little bit, and you could see it. You'll probably see it from my top view up there, but the pen's more accurate. So the initial activation point, where you're pressing the pen and it starts to register, to me is much better than the battery pens. I like it much better. So anyone who's coming from a Cintiq type of display to this is going to immediately feel at home. It's the same kind of thing, except now that this is new, it's improved. So you're not getting any issues at the corners, where you can't select anything or this and that. So all in all, really, really nice job. The next obvious question is there parallax? So I was really surprised. Now you have to figure that my last two reviews were a 16-inch Cintiq Pro bonded glass and also the newer Huion Pro 13. I was expecting to really have a major issue with parallax in this display, not because it would be particularly bad, because I expect in a 22-inch screen that I'm going to have those sort of issues. But to my surprise, even though it's not bonded glass, I really didn't find much at all of an issue with parallax at all. As a matter of fact, if we go here, I don't know how well the camera picks that up, but as far as tracking, the cursor is dead on the pen, and I didn't do any kind of display calibration or any of that stuff. So I'm really, really happy with it. If somebody had to ask me, is it as good as a 13-inch? You know what? I don't know. It's subjective. I guess there's a slight. It's not no parallax. I mean, it's a 22-inch screen, so the thickness of the glass is obviously going to be thicker, and it's not bonded. But this feels great. This would not be a hindrance to anybody who suffers from parallax. What Huion has done here is really bridge the gap with this EMR technology and get it on par, if not better. Well, it's definitely better than if you've used say a Wacom 22-inch HD or the older 24 HD. I mean, without a doubt, much better. So what I'm going to attempt to do is to show you actually how little parallax there is and where this cursor is compared to where the pen is. So we're going to tilt it. Now obviously the camera's to the side, so you're going to see more of the glass than what I see. But as I'm drawing, my cursor, it's so accurate that the little bit of parallax there is almost like I can't tell it's there. So we'll start with just a little, sketching around in SKETCHBOOK Pro, and I already kind of pre-drew a little robot guy here, but just to show you, in a real world, scenario, this is real time, just how much the pen keeps up. You can feel the 8,000 levels of pressure coming through here. It's hard to tell it on the screen, but where you feel it, not unlike the 13-inch, is right at the beginning of the and at the end of the pressure curve. That's really where I noticed the most. In fact, I had to adjust it a little bit because right around the middle, because I'm used to having to, press so hard on older devices. I mean, it was just, like a crayon almost, in the middle of the pressure curve. But, a couple adjustments, and that was the end of that. So we'll see right here that SKETCHBOOK Pro is fairly happy. And you could see at the end of this guy, just that little bit of, like we like to do, I'm not closing the circles intentionally just to see how it tapers off. But you can see the different gradients just using the out of the box, pencil tool, no settings, no messing around with, no custom brushes. For our first ruler test, I've just put on the ballpoint pen with turning the pressure all the way down so that we can test to see if we get a clean line drawing real slow. A little bit faster. Alright, so we can see some wobble along with, my hand wobbling. Once again, I'm drawn off axis because of that camera behind me. Is right over my back, but at slow speeds there is some wobble. So we want to test the overall pressure curve. So we see here when I applied full pressure. Look at that. I'm barely getting anything. Practically looks like a pencil. So yeah, this is where we feel these 8,000 levels of pressure. Yeah, you can see how I get better with the pen. These in here, my arm is so far off as my hand is starting to wiggle, but when you're talking about just quick strokes, just going lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter, this is why I screen grab it, because on the other camera you're probably not even picking this up. Yeah, those are really nice. So let's try their, the pencils like we did in SKETCHBOOK Pro. And you can see, typical of an EMR device, the cursor lags behind a little bit, but it's nothing that keeps me distracted or from, you know, getting down my lines, which is at the end of the day what I'm trying to do. Right? So, and again, I'm rushing a bit here because it's very hard to draw and record with two cameras at the same time, so I'm constantly checking both to see to make sure I'm getting everything I need. And what I wanted to do is, when I looked at some of the older videos, when I have the camera directly on top, you're getting my hand instead of the pen. So I'm also trying to move the pen, probably not effectively, but that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, so last time I did this, somebody asked me, seemed to be a little wiggle in the lines, and I think it's because I was using a custom brush, but for this guy, this is just the default mapping pen. We'll zoom in here just a bit. So I am drawing all kinds of off my axis here. We're just going to test out. This is the default G pen. And the rest of this piece was done in here. So what we're looking for is we're looking to test cross hatch lines. Yeah, I'm pretty satisfied with that. I think all in all, this looks really good. You'll notice the stylus kept up with me. No issues there. Nice clean lines. Again, Clip Studio does have the stabilization built in there, and you know that helps at least somebody like me whose hand moves around a lot. But you know, couldn't be more satisfied with the results. I have just a standard marker pen with no stabilization. I mean, you might get a little pressure, but it should be enough to get us a clean test. Alright, so similar results to SKETCHBOOK Pro. We do have some wobble there. And if I go quick, it doesn't seem to be as bad. And again, these are what I would consider, for for me at least, these are sort of slower strokes. I know some of you guys, at least in the comments, mentioned you draw really, really slow, but it's just not something I can reproduce, I guess, accurately. But I'm mostly like this. Because for me, the faster, I get a line down, the less wobbly it is. But I can understand what you guys are saying, so I want to make sure I captured, the way everyone draws. And just a final word on this line wobble. So, I mean, I kind of get why a lot of people ask about it, but, just for a fair comparison, almost every device I've ever drawn on, N-Trig, Wacom, now Huion, Bosto, Unova, I mean, at this diagonal angle, this seems to have always, and is still a problem for some of these manufacturers. I know when I mentioned before earlier that, Wacom had this problem even on the, the Pro line in the 16, which I have, and they were able to fix this through firmware and stuff. So, I mean, I don't want to detract too much from the device because I've seen these comments in other places. Every time line wobble shows up, it's like, that's trash and this and that. But, I mean, the thing is, if you're comparing a device against everything else in the landscape, then, I mean, what are you going to do? It's just an issue that these manufacturers are going to have to try to solve. Hopefully that'll get better in future iterations, or, they resolve it in this one. For me, it's definitely not a detractor to purchase the device because you have it across all devices. Hey, there he is, Spider-Man. Alright, so let's see what we want here. We'll do a new layer. We got a work in progress by myself, Spider-Man, where I've got some color laid down just to show a little bit. I'm using Kyle's Ultimate Ink Brush, and really it goes without saying just how absolutely useful these hotkeys are. When you don't have them, boy, do you it's like you learn to live without them, but when you have them back, you really learn to appreciate them. So you can see already, even though I'm inking poorly over, how clean these lines are. Let me get a... I mean, these are some nice lines. So we'll try again with that one wasn't my fault. I mean, look at how I'm zoomed in these thick to thin lines. I mean, this looks great. I mean, I'm a pretty shitty inker, so you're seeing the results of that, but it's definitely not the tablet fault. I just wanted to give a more comprehensive, demonstration of how this thing really you know, performs an action. Most of my reviews are just I start drawing squiggly lines and such. And I guess what we'll do is, just to be consistent, we will yeah, that'll do it. Do some slow lines. You know, this is Photoshop, and we know Photoshop could be a little funky with the wobbly lines, so I'm expecting this to be the worst one. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some wobble. What I would say is a halfway normal drawing speed. You're just not going to see that. So my overall thoughts of the device, great. I mean, I don't know how else to put it. I think we're probably getting to a point where we need to stop referring to companies like Huion as knockoffs, and you know, really just start reviewing them for what they are. So a lot of times in similar reviews, you're going to hear things like "for the price" and things like that. But quite honestly, this is a better device than the Cintiq 22 HD, which would probably be its direct competitor. Now, if you compare it against the Pro line, it's not exactly fair because it's bigger and, you know, it has different features and such. So one-on-one, I think this compares very favorably to a Wacom device. And if you're in the market, I absolutely give this a recommendation. I enjoyed using it. I actually used this one for probably about 2 weeks before I did the review. So that's why I was able to mess around with colors and things like that. Are there areas of improvement? Yeah, sure. I don't really go by the, you know, for the price model, like I said. So, you know, I like to see them continue to make inroads into parallax. This one was much better, but they're still a little there. I'd like to see the express keys more configurable, like on the touch strip, like the Pro 13. But again, you know, you're going to lose a button there. So some of the things you heard in the review when I'm comparing against the Pro 13, the Pro 13 is newer, so that's a little unfair because that's their newest model. But I'd like to see the flagships continue in that direction. And even none of these companies have really implemented any kind of you know, touch or gesture to really, you know, knock Wacom on its ass. I mean, even though they, you know, charge another $500 for it, you know, still you can imagine if you could get a, you know, the base price for this model is somewhere around $899, $900, something like that. You can imagine for $100 more, if you get full-blown touch in here, it'd be fantastic. And then, you know, add tilt stuff on top of that, and you know, what are you spending the extra $1,000 for? But on that note, I'm going to wrap it up. Keep your eyes on this channel because there may be, how can I put it? There may be more announcements specific to this device that I can't share yet. But subscribe, you know, comment below. You guys have been great with giving me feedback so that these reviews get better. So I'm really enjoying that. You know, I usually get back and reply to every comment. Hit that little bell, you know, so you see my videos. I don't get paid on YouTube. I just do this for fun. So any affiliate links and anything like that go right back into the channel for me to buy more devices. So hopefully you had a good time, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Thanks.